Surah An-Nazi'at is the first surah. Most people, when they memorize Quran, they go from the back, right? Because the chapters are shorter. So the first mention of Musa is at the end of Surah Al-A'la, right? Suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa. But the first actual kind of going into the story of Musa is in Surah An-Nazi'at, which is the second chapter in the Jews. If you start from the beginning of the Jews, Surah An-Naba. And so Allah tells just a little tiny bit about the story of Musa and Fir'aun. And he mentions the purpose. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention these stories in the Quran at all? And he says, Inna fi dhalika la'ibratan liman yakhsha. It's like, this has ibrah. Ibrah, it has lessons, right? For those who fear, or for those who have awe or reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a lot of people, they approach the Quran, or they are going to get out of the Quran what they're looking for. And regrettably, some people approach the Quran as if it's just a book of history and telling you facts about the past. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting those stories in there for. And that's why there's not necessarily irrelevant details. This is actually one of the criteria by which you can judge that the Quran is a genuine, authentic revelation of Allah. And other claimants to revelation are really the works of human beings, because they have many irrelevant details, many sort of things that are historical trivia, right? Things that don't really matter. They're not essential to the moral message, whereas the Quran is fundamentally and primarily a moral message. It's a moral injunction. Here's what's happening. Here's what you have to do. Do it. And so, like any good speaker, but of course Allah is the best, that, you're not going to put in irrelevant details. You're going to only include the details that are essential to the message or essential to getting the point across or the action that you're trying to evoke. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these stories, Surah An-Nazi'at's a great example, it's extremely brief in this particular instance. In other places like Surah Al-Qasas, it's very long, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us something different. But the main reason that they're there, it's not for just historical trivia. It's not, who was really the Fir'aun? Why does Allah never even mention the name of Fir'aun? You know how many Fir'auns there were? Like, Fir'aun was like a title. And he didn't tell us what's his name, because it's not important to us. It's not important to us for our salvation, right? The point of the story, Inna fi dhalika la'ibratan liman yakhsha, is like, it's about a lesson. Like, and Allah warns us in other places in the Quran, such as Surah Al-Kahf, and in Surah Al-Baqarah, to not get lost in the details, because if you get lost in the details, you're just trying to find out the little minutiae or minutia, you're going to miss the moral message. Like, the real reason that Allah is telling the story is not for historical trivia or historical fact. It's not for, and that's not to say it's not historical fact, it is, but that's not the purpose that he's telling it. He's also not telling it to us so we can just sit here in 2022 and say, well, or 2023 now, and say, I'm a Muslim and I'm not like that. Alhamdulillah, I'm way better than this guy. No, it's about a lesson, right? Allah wants something from you when he tells you the story of Musa and Fir'aun. He wants you to make sure that you're coming down on the side of Musa and not the side of Fir'aun. And so then it leads the reader to need to question, well, what is it that distinguishes Fir'aun from Musa in this particular story? And in this particular instance, it's that he's shown signs and he rejects. And that's the fundamental moral moment, right? It's like when you're shown signs in your life, then you reject, or you accept and you get right. I was talking with somebody in the community the other day, and they told me about their son, and they were afraid because their son is kind of drifting away, right, from the faith, which is, a typical sort of thing. And I think with either stocks or Bitcoin or something like that, young 20-something-year-old made $30,000 in a day, okay, and then lost it all the next day. And so, I was kind of talking. It's like, okay, well, maybe this is good. What does Allah want from him? And maybe the inroad to try to get him to think about sort of more spiritual things is to say, well, did it happen just randomly? Or is this a sign? And if it's a sign, what is it a sign of, right? What is Allah trying to teach you with this thing that he put in your life? And any sort of benefit or blessing or calamity is the same. Allah is trying to teach you something, right? He's trying to give you an opportunity. So what is the opportunity that he's trying to give you? What is he trying to show you about yourself? And what is the lesson? That's what Muslims should always ask. What is the lesson?